The Zephyrian High Council had prepared everything perfectly. Crystal chambers gleamed with bioluminescent welcome displays. Their finest translators stood ready, and ceremonial gifts from a dozen worlds waited in ornate containers. Ambassador Kethavar adjusted his ceremonial robes one final time, his four eyes scanning the diplomatic reception hall of Nexus Station. "The humans should arrive within the hour," announced Communications Officer Zilith, her tentacles dancing across the holographic controls. Their transmission indicated they're sending their finest diplomatic vessel. Kethvar's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. After 3 months of careful negotiations through subspace channels, humanity had finally agreed to formal first contact. The Galactic Coalition had been eager to welcome Earth's children into their peaceful federation of 847 species. Outside the massive viewport, stars twinkled serenely around the neutral space station. This sector had been chosen specifically for its symbolic significance, equidistant from Earth and the Coalition core worlds, a perfect meeting ground for what would surely be a historic moment of unity. "Contact on long-range sensors," Zilith reported, her voice carrying a note of confusion. "But, Ambassador, this doesn't appear to be a diplomatic vessel." The first sign something was wrong came when the station's proximity alarms began shrieking. Kethavar rushed to the observation deck just as a shadow fell across Nexus Station. What emerged from the void wasn't the sleek, peaceful craft they'd expected. Instead, a behemoth of black metal and angular fury materialized from hyperspace, its hull bristling with weapons that could crack moons. The vessel was impossibly massive, nearly 8 kilometers of predatory death wrapped in armor plating that seemed to absorb light itself. Weapon ports glowed with barely contained energy, and sensor arrays swept the area with mechanical precision. This wasn't just a warship. It was a mobile apocalypse. "By the 7 suns," whispered cultural attaché Vexim, his scales turning pale with terror. "That's not a diplomatic vessel. That's a planet killer." The communication array crackled to life, and a human voice filled the chamber, calm, professional, and utterly terrifying in its casual tone. "Nexus Station. This is Admiral Sarah Chen aboard the UES Reckoning. We're here for the diplomatic meeting as scheduled." Kethavar's hands trembled as he activated the response channel. "Admiral, we were expecting diplomats, not a warship of this magnitude." A pause. Then, what sounded suspiciously like amusement in the human's voice. "Admiral, we are the diplomats. I'm Ambassador Admiral Chen, and this is our diplomatic vessel." The Zephyrian delegation exchanged horrified glances. In the coalition, diplomacy was conducted by scholars, philosophers, and peacekeepers. The idea of a military officer serving as an ambassador, let alone arriving in a weapon of mass destruction, was beyond comprehension. "Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding," Kethavar managed, fighting to keep his voice steady. "In coalition space, diplomatic vessels are typically unarmed research ships or civilian transports." Another pause. Longer this time. When Admiral Chen spoke again, her tone carried the weight of hard-earned wisdom. "Ambassador Kethavar, let me tell you something about human diplomacy. We learned long ago that the best negotiations happen when everyone knows exactly what the consequences of failure might be. This ship isn't a threat, it's a guarantee." Through the viewport, they watched as the Reckoning's docking bay opened, revealing shuttlecraft that looked more like atmospheric fighters than diplomatic transports. "We're sending a diplomatic party aboard," Chen continued. "Don't worry, we left our really big guns at home. The Reckoning only carries city killers, not world crackers." Zilith fainted. 20 minutes later, the human delegation strode through Nexus Station's corridors, and Kethavar understood immediately why their species had survived and thrived in a hostile galaxy. Each human moved with predatory grace, their eyes constantly scanning for threats, their hands never far from weapons that could probably take down a coalition battlecruiser. Admiral Chen was smaller than expected, but she radiated an aura of contained violence that made ancient Kethavar feel like prey. Her diplomatic team consisted of individuals who looked equally comfortable signing treaties or burning cities. "Ambassador Kethavar," Chen said, extending a hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Thank you for arranging this meeting. I hope our arrival didn't cause any misunderstandings." Kethavar clasped the offered hand, noting the calluses that spoke of weapons training, and the strength that could probably crush his delicate bones. "Admiral, forgive my curiosity, but is this how humans typically conduct diplomacy?" Chen's smile was sharp as a plasma blade. Let me tell you a story, Ambassador. A few centuries ago, we had a saying, walk softly and carry a big stick. We evolved that philosophy. Now we walk normally and carry planet killers. She gestured toward the viewport where the reckoning hung in space like a metallic storm cloud. Every species in this galaxy has something they fear losing. For some, it's their homeworld. For others, it's their trade routes or their colonies. Humans, we fear being unprepared. So when we come to the negotiating table, we make sure everyone knows exactly what we're capable of. The negotiations that followed were unlike anything in coalition history. Instead of the usual months of careful deliberation and philosophical discussions, agreements were reached within hours. Trade compacts, defense treaties, and technological exchanges were signed with unprecedented speed. Later, as the reckoning prepared to depart, Kethavar found himself genuinely impressed. The humans had been fair, reasonable, and surprisingly generous in their agreements. They'd also made it absolutely clear that betraying those agreements would result in consequences that would make supernovas look like candlelight. Admiral, he said during their final communication, I must admit your diplomatic methods are effective. Chen's laugh echoed through the comm channel. Ambassador, there's an old human principle. If you want peace, prepare for war. We just took it to its logical conclusion. If you want really good peace, prepare for total war. As the massive warship disappeared into hyperspace, Kethavar realized the galaxy had just changed forever. Humanity hadn't just joined the coalition. They'd redefined what it meant to be diplomatic. The paperwork for humanity's membership was approved in record time. Somehow, none of the coalition worlds felt like prolonging the process. After all, the humans had made their point quite effectively. Peace, it turned out, was much easier to maintain when everyone knew exactly what the alternative looked like.